My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer. I came to Bright Falls with my wife, Alice. I told myself I could rest here, sleep here, and forget about my work. I thought we could be happy here.
Alan, please help me.
Alice? Carsillo, and I have the distinct pleasure now of talking with Sam Lake. He's the lead writer for the new psychological thriller Alan Wake, coming out, of course, in May 2010 for Xbox 360. And Sam, first off, thanks for taking a few minutes of your time today to talk to us about this game.
Thank you. It's very nice stage to be showing it. We are at the final stages of polishing, still doing some minor tweaks here and there, but feeling very good about it. And it's nice to be talking about the game.
We just saw a very in-depth demo, and the first thing I have to talk to you about is that Alan Wake's been in development for a while, and it's had a lot of anticipation. As the writer, how hard was it for you to first off come up with a psychological thriller script for a video game, and then how hard was it for possibly to do rewrites or tweaks along the way in this process?
Right. I mean, the high concept of the game has remained more or less the same. We knew that we want to do a thriller. As opposed to a horror game. As in video games, horror often means blood and gore and big monsters coming at you. We wanted to do something more atmospheric and something that has good story reasons for all those scares. And we knew that we want everyman hero who needs to grow into the role of an action hero as opposed to being that from the beginning. So a writer, a natural storyteller was our choice. So those things have been there from the beginning, but naturally the plot has evolved along the way. It's always a kind of a dialogue between game design and story on how these things evolve. So plot elements have shifted around, but really writing a game like this, writing goes on almost to the very end.
Now, being a writer yourself, did Alan possibly have any direct inspiration from any experiences that you may have had?
Right. Well, writers tend to write about writers for some strange reason. I don't know. I mean, it's more like certainly you put something of yourself into a story you work on. It's not so much one character, but it's the story as a whole. Just your perspective of how you tend to look at things. But this is definitely a work of fiction.
Talk a little bit about the light versus dark elements. There's a lot of the combat in this game revolves around Alan having a flashlight or flare guns or something to give off some kind of light as to go against these shadowy creatures. Talk a little bit about that dynamic and your inspiration for it.
Right. From very early on, we knew that we wanted to work on these themes, light and darkness, and we have built our own tech, our engine, to kind of give us as good results on these elements as possible. Light is the key gameplay element, light and darkness, and daytime sequences we have in the game, and being in light in general means represents the sane world and safety, and darkness means nightmares and danger. And from the action game perspective, it's another layer on top of the more kind of conventional action. Wake's enemies are covered in shadows and protected by the mysterious dark presence that has possessed them. And for the player, light is a combat tool, and he needs to use light to burn that darkness away before he can do any conventional damage on his enemies.
How difficult was it to find a nice balance between having light readily accessible in weapons and with his flashlight, and making the enemies difficult enough where they're constantly coming at him and taking possession of inanimate objects and animals, and how difficult was it to find that balance?
Right. I mean, well, it's a kind of a normal work process for any action game, really. You have those elements in there. You need to prototype. You need to test things around, and once you have some kind of a core mechanic, and you are then it's a lot of iteration, a lot of fine tuning until and polish until it works as well as possible.
Another key aspect of the game is the episodic element of the storytelling,
Right, yeah.
almost kind of like an X-Files or something that kind of like almost like to be continued constantly between the levels and as Alan advances in the game. What made you want to do it kind of with not a straight, I guess, almost like stream of consciousness, but just breaking it up in those episodes?
Right. I mean, well, a game is kind of a relatively long entity, and we were looking for kind of outside the video games. We were looking for an inspiration for a kind of a story structure that would work very well, and a TV series is something that a season of a TV series has kind of that longer structure. It's very important to keep the kind of the pace up and keep the players interested. So breaking it down into episodes felt like a very, very good thing to do. So yes, we are modeling this after TV series. We at the beginning of each episode we have a short previously on segment that kind of underlines story bits that are relevant in the next episode you are going to play. More often than not, we end an episode to a cliffhanger, and really for a good thriller, the pacing is very, very important, and we have tried to kind of balance things out so that for the most episodes you have a daytime sequence that it's more exploration and meeting characters and finding more things about the story and foreshadowing as well, and then there is the kind of a nightmarish nighttime action sequence in a dark forest, for instance.
Speaking of forest, the game is set in a random Pacific Northwestern kind of town. How important was choosing that setting, and why the woodland areas?
Well, we were trying to look for a setting that would be familiar to many people. We knew that we want to do a kind of a idyllic, quirky, small town with dark things lurking under that kind of idyllic facade. Why it's in Washington, where there is definitely an echo of Twin Peaks in there, and we were trying to find a kind of a unique setting that hasn't been done in video games before.
Now, for an average gamer, how long would you expect it would take them to get through one playthrough of Alan Wake? In between, of course, the changing of their pants constantly as they're scared to death half the time.
Right. Well, depending on how fast they change their pants. No, kidding. There is a lot of exploration content in there, so it will definitely depend on whether the player wants to kind of find out all there is to find out about the story, or whether they are more interested in grabbing a flashlight and a gun and kind of enjoying the action. So I would say that it compares well with the other popular action titles out there.
Of course, the game is Alan Wake. It comes out May 18th, 2010 for Xbox 360. If you're into psychological thrillers, then this is definitely a game that looks like you must get. Sam, thanks again for your time.
Yes. All right.